Okay, now, I'm going to put targator and alizan in there, and I might do it like this.
Targator, alizan.
And the other way around would be like this. And that one's a knuckle buster, okay? Even for me to hear it in my head and throw it out, I'm going to use it very specially. Okay, 1, 2, now. Almost.
Alligator, targator, alizan.
Alligator, targator, alizan.
One more time.
Alligator, alligator, targator, alizan.
See what happens when you use those alligators?
You eat them alive.
Here's even harder. Check this one out. Let's see.
Targator, alligator, alizan, drum.
Yes!
Congratulations.
How you gonna go star?
Everybody else is mine.
That's where what I'm doing is fooling you. We got an alligator on the upbeat and downbeat, but then I put an alligator in the middle. So it would be like this. Drum. Can you hear that? Alligator, alligator. I'm sorry. That's where I'm putting an alligator in between the targator and the alizan, and that really is harder to hear. Okay, what we're hearing here is like 16ths of, we're seeing 16ths and 8, of a beat, and that's pretty fine. But the thing about these code words is once you know the code word and you really get used to using it, you can actually hear instantly these rhythms. So when someone's playing something, if you just listen for the code word, all of a sudden you'll start hearing the code word, and if you write down those symbols, you'll have pretty much the rhythm that they're doing. Now all these things are based on 2 to 1. We're going to stay away from triplets and things like that, and fiblets and all that until later. There's some sophisticated things we can do also in terms of syncopation. And I'm just going to lay this on you so you can think about this. But just with these 2 simple code words, an amazing amount of things that we hear in jazz all the time happen. For instance, this is on the downbeat, upbeat, right? What if I took this note and tied it to that note? So these were one sound. So then I would think of it as this way. Drum, zan, 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 drum. Now, what they actually did is, they actually had this note here in history, and when they tied them together, some smart guy came up with this idea, well, what if we just take this and draw it over here as if it was just a little grace note, and then over a period of about 200 years, people got rid of the flag of this thing being over there. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't bring that book.
I know, because we don't have a specific code word for it. Watch how this works. And some fairly common things that you will see a lot come up in songs, and particularly in jazz, where they want to do these offbeat rhythms is, we had this note here, which is the drum, and then they had here the tarzan. And what happened is they tied this together. And this figure looked like this visually for a couple centuries. But then some guy said, well look, since this is being tied into this and it's kind of added like a grace note that we're hanging on to, how about if we just draw this like this, and then we'll just take this one little note, put it right here by itself with its little flag on it, And then we'll draw this note over here with its big S, with its flag on it. And after a while in history, it started looking like this, where the tar part of the Tarzan was tied in to that and looked like a little grace knot. Then what happened is about 50 or 60 years later, you know, people who write music are like doctors. They try to use shorthand as much as possible, and after a while these symbols, which make sense, start to get little shorthand forms. So somebody said, well, why don't we just do this? Let's erase this part and just leave the dot. So we're taking the tar of the Tarzan and we're adding it into this note. Now some people have come up with a formula for this. I don't care, because it doesn't help your ear, the formula. But what was really happening here is when you take this, what we call a quarter note, or the drum, and we add the tar into it, they do it by just adding a little dot out there, so you say, hey, we're taking the first syllable of this thing. And now, when we have just this by itself, if we erase this, and we've tied it into that over there, right, with just a single dot, now we're left with this thing with a flag. Of course, we make the flags, those little flags that look like those flags you see at airports when they're trying to show you which way the wind blows, right? So now this figure here is the same as drum, silent tar with a loud zan. Drum, zan, drum, zan, drum, zan, drum, zan, drum, zan, drum, zan. When you see a figure like this, if you don't know how to read it, put the flag back on and connect it back to its buddy next door, and all of a sudden it will look like what it came from. This is what it evolved from. And all you have to do is in your own head make this syllable silent. Okay? Make that syllable silent. And now you've got an offbeat rhythm. Okay? Now the next offbeat thing that happened was, what did I do with my phone? Was with Tarzan. This composite, these are called, we're doing what we call composites now. We're taking pieces of one thing and pieces of another and compositing together, right? Okay? This is one of my favorite figures. It's kind of interesting how it evolved. Tarzan, 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 right? What if I take these two syllables and tie them together so they make one sound? Now what do I have? Now I have Tarzan, Zan, Tarzan, Zan, Tarzan, Zan, Tarzan, Zan, Tarzan, Zan, Tarzan, Zan. The most used rhythm in jazz. That is the most used rhythm in jazz. It is people who are friendly to you who represent it this way. People who are not friendly will take these two, put them together because the two of them together make a drum. And they'll draw it like this. They'll put this here, here's your tar. Then they take the zan and the tar of the next thing and draw it as a single note, like that, a drum. And then they will take the last beat here, put that on there, and it'll look like that. Okay? You see this a lot in jazz. It's a lot of people's favorite way of getting syncopation. But it's still tar, zan, zan, tar, zan, zan, tar, zan, zan, da, da, ba, bum, ba, ba, tar, zan, zan, tar, zan, zan. And it can be visually represented like this. Okay. We're going to get into these a little bit more later, but when you people are jamming, and just jamming on your own, sometimes a lot of the rhythms that you're coming up with are either this rhythm or that other one. They're the two most common syncopated or offbeat rhythms. And they're both a composite of drum and tarzan, or two tarzans, where the middle syllable is silent. You just think it, but you still think of it as two tarzans. No matter how it visually is represented, still think of it as two tarzan, and you can stay in control of it and you can hear it.